Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you and welcome to the February 21st, 2023 City Council meeting of the City of Windom. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have the council minutes from February 7th, HRA February 8th, EDA February 13th, Community Center Commission February 13th, Library Board February 14th, Park and Rec Commission February 15th. License applications included are the exempt gambling permit at Bark, March 21st and April 18th, and temporary liquor license, Windom Lion Club, March 23rd. Also included are the regular bills. Does the council have any questions? If not, then motion to approve would be in order.
I'd make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Marv, second by Jim. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Department heads. Not seeing none. Everybody's got their spot. League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Renewal, represented by Josh Peterson of the great city of Windom. Josh, it's all yours.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. On behalf of Bank Midwest and myself, thanks also for allowing us to continue to work with the city on their insurance. I'm here tonight. We can definitely move this fairly quickly. I don't have a lot, but if you just want to skip to the next, perfect. Really, this letter just outlines the fact that I'm going to go through a fairly high-level summary review of our coverages really year after year, from last year to this year, as well as some of the coverages that we write outside of the League of Minnesota Cities. I'll highlight those two. Something to note for the year 2022, all League of Minnesota participating cities were declared dividends. The city of Windom did receive $27,598 for that dividend for the 2022 renewal year. I believe that check came in December. If we move on to the next page, and again, if you guys have specific questions on these, by all means, let's break it down and ask me. I've really just broken down the different parts of coverages that we have with the League of Minnesota Cities: property, mobile property, municipal liability, all of our auto, data or cyber type liability, liquor liability, and bond coverage. The League of Minnesota Cities, as well as many carriers, have taken some rate hits this year, pretty modest from a league standpoint. Overall, about 5-ish% across the board for any of their property coverages. Our premium is up this year. The vast majority of that is really tied to, and you can see it here, property values are up over $8 million based on inflation and just construction costs, labor, etc. So that we saw a pretty good increase on the property side of things, as well as municipal liability is kind of up across the board. So overall, we are, when it comes to the league at this point, we're about $267, $416 is our premium for the 23 year. I've noted down below, for any of the mobile property up there, I just want to make sure if we have anything valued under $200,000 for mobile property, it's automatically included on a blanket. We do have the street sweeper listed on there. Ultimately, this just lays out how that works as far as if there was a loss on that, either the cost to repair the unit, 200% of fair market value, or the cost of a new unit, up to $200,000 in the event of a loss on mobile property. If we move on to the next page, I just highlight there, we write equipment breakdown coverage through Travelers. That's a coverage that the league, it's not that they don't write necessarily, but we don't really qualify based on our power plant. And so we write equipment breakdown through Travelers. That includes our municipal power plant and coverage on substation components, as well as equipment breakdown overall throughout the city. This premium is very much tied to the limit that we have on our property, and there again, we're up $8+ million when we look at total value of buildings, contents of those buildings, as well as property in the open. So if we don't factor in work comp and we look at overall League of Minnesota city coverages, that would include that would also include some miscellaneous bonds that we write with CNA surety that are for Windom net as well as utility permits. But overall premium year over year, 332, 135 last year, 337, 437 this year. Questions?
Any questions from the council? Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Steve, did you have anything?
And that brings us to work comp. Work comp, you ultimately look at the 2023 line far right, you can see our premium there. Ultimately, our experience mod, and I can kind of speak to that if you guys want to, but it's increased. Basically, if we look at ourselves with work comp on the average of all other municipalities, they rank you as far as that goes. So you can see we fluctuate a little bit here and there, but obviously we were down to 0.92 last year. We're back up to 0.95 this year. This impacts premium. What that's basically saying, or what they're doing, is they're using a 3-year period for determining that formula. So anything from we throw out last year, and then anything that from 2019, 2020, or 21 is factored in there. 2019, we had, you can see there's still a significant amount of dollars from work comp claim in 2019. That is going to drop off for next year. I anticipate that will have a positive impact on our work comp. Let me also say that does also depend on our, how we perform from a work comp standpoint. We have performed very well the last few years, meaning pretty limited as far as claims, et cetera. So that's why, we're looking quite a bit better than obviously 2019. So that will fall off, and then they'll factor us based on, you can skip the last year and the past 3 years. So I expect we'll see some adjustment there if we keep our work comp in line, which I think we do a really good job at anyway. Work comp questions? Nothing? This last page, many of you are familiar with this. Through insurance with municipalities, there are tort limits that come into play in the event that there's a claim against the city for liability, and that could be any number of things that we could talk through. But ultimately, the statutory tort limits are $500,000 per claimant and $1.5 million per occurrence. The city has generally elected not to waive those coverages, to leave those in place. Should you waive those coverage, it ultimately puts you in a position where obviously they can go potentially went above and beyond those limits. So it's a protection for cities, municipalities. That is something that I would ask the board to vote on, and that vote, and let me know if you need clarification on that, is specifically to waive or to not waive the standard tort limits. And again, historically, we have elected not to waive those.
Just for the council's clarification, these are statutory protections that the legislature has put in place for municipalities that limit the amount of loss that we could have. So that's where these protections come from. So.
Do you want to?
Let's act on that one first. Is that okay? And if you want to leave it the same, the motion would be not to waive the statutory tort limit.
I would make the motion not to waive the statutory tort limit.
I'll second it.
Motion by Marv, seconded by Scott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, we have the city has made, to accept the coverage in the past, accept or reject the excess liability coverage for 2023.
So let me
Yep,
add to
go
that,
ahead.
Dominic, real quick. I always quote excess liability. I think it's customary that we do that. Some might argue you can never have enough, even after we just talked about tort limits, et cetera. But point being is, if you were to purchase an additional $1 million in excess liability, which is an option for you, the premium would be an additional $21,225 for that. We currently have $3 million aggregate. I mean, that's standard League of Minnesota State, or our municipal liability. Like I said, we can add to that, or you can vote against that. Historically, we have voted against that, or you guys have, the council has.
Steve, any comment on that? Same.
Just echo Josh's comments, that we have traditionally rejected the additional coverage because of the $3 million aggregate coverage with the league trust policy and the tort waivers in place. So if we had waived the tort limits, then I would suggest we get the limit to the excess liability. But since we didn't, I would recommend that we continue status quo and reject the excess liability coverage for 23.
Okay, hearing from both Josh and Steve, is there a motion to reject the excess liability coverage?
I'll make the motion to reject.
I'll second.
Motion by Jim, second by Jenny. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
That's all I've got, you guys. Unless there's
That's all
any-
he's got. And hey, Josh, while you're here,
Yeah.
thank you for serving on the telecom committee. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'll
happy
try to
do it.
get you a couple more people here yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that too. We'll
Yep,
see.
all right, yep.
Can I steal a quick signature?
Sure. Okay. Next, we have the results of the ratification of the fire department election. Ben is here, the chief.
Fire Chief Ben Derrickson. This is a annual deal we do. We hold annual elections every year for the fire department for the 4 officer positions. Fire Chief, First Assistant, Second Assistant, and Third Assistant. We hold these elections in the department the first February every year. I don't know if you want me to run down through this, or how do you want to go about that?
How much information do you want to present, Ben? I think we should, you should list the positions and the person, and it's customary, I think, that the council then takes action on those.
Okay.
Thank you.
For Fire Chief is myself, Ben Derrickson. I've had this position, this will be my 5th year. First Assistant Chief, Jordan Bussa. This will be, I believe, his 2nd or 3rd year. I can't remember for sure. Second Assistant Chief, Justin Harrington. It'll be his 5th year. And Third Assistant Chief, Kristen Porth. It'll be her 3rd year as well. Or 5th year, I'm sorry.
Okay. And, you know, these are more senior members of your fire department, and we sure appreciate that, as long as the newcomers that are on your department as well. So this is the information. Typically, they do their elections, and the council ratifies those positions annually. So does the council wish to take action? Or have any questions prior for Ben?
And for the council's information as well, in the fire department, they have criteria to qualify as an officer position. There's like firefighter 1, firefighter 2 training. So there are certain criteria that get met that then makes that person eligible to hold office. And that's something you put into play a few years ago, I believe, so.
Yes, that's in our bylaws that you have to be, you have to have firefighter 1 and 2 certified. You have to be in good standings in the community. You have to be on the department for a minimum of 5 years before you can run for an officer position. And you have to make your attendance percentages for drills and calls for the year as well to run.
And that's the criteria that are listed as under each one of these positions are proposed. So I just wanted to point out and say thank you for providing that information and for all the work that these folks have done.
Absolutely. Is there a motion to approve that?
I'd make the motion to approve the annual election of the fire department.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mark, for the motion, and Scott for the second. Any discussion by the council? With appreciation, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ben. Anything else this evening?
Thank you much, and we'll continue to do what we do.
Yep, you betcha. Keep it up. Doing a good job. Ben, I wanted to mention just quickly is your annual meeting with the townships and whatnot is coming up. Is that correct? And is that date going to work for everybody? I know that one's not able to attend, but I am, if that works.
Yes, we do have our annual fire district meeting set. 27th? Monday the 27th at, I believe, 7 o'clock over at the fire hall over there. And yes, you guys are all welcome to attend. So.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that too. Next item, Park and Rec Commission recommendation. There is an Eagle Achievement project that we got our Park and Rec Superintendent going to talk about this evening as a Eagle Achievement Award project. And then he's going to tell us about the snow coming.
Good evening, John Ketzenberg, Street and Park Superintendent. Had a couple young ladies, Becca Johnson, Emily Nagan came in and want to put some dog park equipment in there for the dogs to play in and everything. So they wanted to bring that to the Park and Rec, which they did. Emily had a wonderful presentation, and they're hoping to have all the money together by the end of April, beginning of May, so they can get it installed. So we'd like to have the council approve that.
Okay, and the just understanding Park and Rec voted on that to recommend to the council?
Correct.
Very good. Sounds like a good project. What's the council think?
Well, I think it's an excellent idea. I think these girls did some good research on just looking at dog boredom is what they talked about, and then also exercise and, you know, healthy animals. And they looked up different equipment from different places, there's a lot of different price points of things. I think their goal was to raise $2,500 to hopefully purchase 2 different pieces of equipment. But depending on, you know, how much money they have, that'll depend on how much they can. But it's all approved things for dog parks, and they also are working with, in collaboration with, like lost my train of thought on
The
that.
Humane Society, Conway County Humane Society.
Or the
it was.
animal rescue. Yes, with Joanne Kaiser was there too. And this just looks like a great thing. The girls are going to hopefully raise this money and get us some new equipment in the dog parks so they can have a lot of fun out there. And the city or between the girls talked about figuring out a way to have it installed. So the girls might even be able to have that installed by local people, or the street department could help out with that. So we're looking forward to their project.
That sounds great. And when that donation comes to fruition, I think it'd be great if those gals could come here and present their project maybe, or, you know, and we could show a picture or two for them. Okay. Does the council wish to take action in the,
Just a question, how well is that dog park being received by the community?
I'm not down there with my dog much, but I do see a few people in there using it quite often.
I think more so probably during the summer, because I don't think John's shoveling it right now. So, well, you're right, Jim. Any other questions? Council wish to take action?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I would second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Marv. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And John, what's the weather going to do tonight?
I believe the weather says it's going to snow. So yes, please get your vehicles off the streets and everything, because we will be in probably about 5 in the morning and run through whatever amount accumulates overnight, and then we're going to be kind of plowing all day, because it looks like we're going to have a significant amount of snow coming till at least Thursday morning. So please be courteous of the plows and stay out of our way, and we'll try to get everything cleaned up as best as we can. And a snow emergency has been declared from midnight tomorrow to noon to noon, yes. 22nd to 23rd.
All right, sounds good, John. And everybody be careful in your travels out there too. All right, you guys take care of your trucks. All right, thank you. Okay, next is special assessment agreement on 1424th Street. Steve, touching base on that?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. A couple of council meetings ago, we had a conversation about the City Council's willingness to reduce a special assessment. This is a property where a home was demolished a few years ago. The parcel went back on taxes. It went to tax sale, was not sold. A developer, in this case it's GDF Properties, came forth and asked if the city would reduce the assessment by 50%. They would acquire the property and build a home on the property. And so, in discussion with Mr. Francis, we developed the agreement that you see in the packet. The amount of the assessment is $18,178. That's what's sitting on it right now. If this development agreement were approved, that assessment would drop to $9,089 up front. That would be paid. And then within 2 years, a home valued at least $250,000 would be built on that property. If that home is not built, then the rest of that assessment is due and payable to the city, so we would get it all. If the home is built, this is then the amount they would pay, and then the property is not eligible for the tax abatement program. So that's kind of the trade-off on that one. So essentially, this is a kind of a good deal for both parties. Reduces some upfront costs there, but it saves us some back-end tax forgiveness on that, and gets a home developed on a piece of property that's currently sitting vacant. This agreement I talked to the League of Minnesota Cities to make sure we're on the right path, and then the city attorney has also reviewed this and signed off on it. So Mr. Francis is currently out of town, but if this passes council, I anticipate this next week we would get this signed, and they'd be looking at moving forward construction.
Okay. Any questions for Steve on that? Okay, that's I think a good agreement. Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, a motion would be in favor to approve the agreement.
I motion to approve the agreement on the 14th and 24th Street.
I'll second.
Motion made by Scott, seconded by Jenny, to approve the agreement with Glenn Francis regarding the, abatement of a portion of the real estate assessment. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Ambulance, Kristen's here. Gonna take the speaker.
Want to do the rig first? Okay. I just want to get to the right page, so.
You want to make that a little bigger on the screen, just so we can see
Yep.
the numbers?
Sure. Whenever you're ready.
Kristen Forth, Windom Ambulance Director. I'm here tonight to have a resolution approved awarding the ambulance replacement contract. We had one bid from Aero Manufacturing that met the deadlines and the qualifications for our ambulance replacement. It will be a 2023 Ford E450 chassis. It's a V8 gasoline engine. It'll be pretty much be the same as our Unit 30 that we had done about a year ago. It'll be a twin to that, and the box that's on our rig will be refurbished and reused for this project.
And is this just the chassis? Or
This
is
is
it
the complete package.
complete package
Yes.
with the refurbishing of your,
Yes.
okay. Pretty straightforward. We knew this was coming, as you mentioned, previous meetings. And I think this is in line with about what you thought for cost. So does the council have any further questions? Steve does.
Just a comment, we priced it out with trade and without trade. And we did some homework on keeping that chassis, but due to the way it's constructed with a pass-through where the box is in the back of the cab, and with the miles on it and what we would have to do to rehab it and keep it, we are recommending that we take this with the trade and let the old chassis go back to Aero. So that is our recommendation.
This is being funded with ambulance reserve dollars.
Yes, it is.
Was that a motion, Marv, if that was the case?
Well, I would introduce a resolution awarding the contract for the ambulance replacement project.
I'll second it.
Resolution introduced by Marv and seconded by Scott. Any further discussion? Anything further, Steve? No? Okay, I'll ask for a roll call.
Grunig,
Yes.
Esplin, Nelson,
Yes.
Quaid,
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
And that resolution carries. Thank you all. Thanks, Kristen. She has one more thing, and that is the resolution establishing ambulance rates.
We're going to go to the memo first.
Okay.
Go through the memo.
Windom Ambulance is looking at raising our billing rates for our service, BLS rates and our ALS rates. We did a little research on them and compared them. I had 4 local services in our area that were comparable to our service. The average, as you can see up there, the average BLS rate is $833.50. We're proposing to increase our rate from $650 to $750, and that's just the BLS rate, which is like basically our local in-town calls, local patient calls to the hospital. The ALS rates are transfer rates, where we take a nurse along. The average right now is around $1,043.75. That does include Worthington. That's a little bit bigger city. They do charge a little bit more. Our current rate right now is $850, and we're proposing to increase that to $1,000. And then our BLS mileage rate, we're proposing to increase that from $12 to $15. The average is $19.75. Medicare only does pay a certain percentage of that loaded miles, so we're looking at loaded miles. If we increase it too much, then we're going to have a bigger debt because they just write it off. So we think we're kind of a happy medium at that $15 rate.
Any question on the proposed rates? Steve?
Just one of the pieces of the ALS rate, because you do have a nurse in the rig going along on those runs.
Correct.
Part of this is due to some of the costs in the nursing rates that you have to need to pay as well, correct?
Correct. So the Windom ambulance is billed for the nurse. The hospital doesn't pay that. They actually send us a bill every month for the nurses that ride along on those transfers. So we're paying them a certain rate for those transfers, and it's a blanket rate for those transfers.
So are we actually getting, under these rate proposals, are we getting that taken care of? I mean, are we meeting, yeah, okay.
Yes,
It'll cover all that cost of what we were charged from Windom Area Health, right?
correct.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions? It was discussed at budget time that Kristen would be coming back with us for this sometime this year, so and I believe the budget was all figured on and potential increased rates to some.
We anticipated some kind of rate increase, so we didn't know exactly what it would be at the time.
Is there this is a resolution. Someone wish to entertain that? Marv, would you like to press your button?
I would introduce resolution, I get the wrong one, approving the new rate structure.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jenny. Resolution introduced by Marv and seconded by Jenny. This is establishing rates and charges and fees for the Windom Ambulance Service, a special revenue fund. Steve, a roll call?
Nelson.
Yes.
Grunig. Benson.
Yes.
Quaid.
Yes.
Esplin.
And that resolution carries. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to touch base on while you're here?
I do have one more thing that we just got last week, and that's an award from the EMSRB, which is our licensing board. It's a certificate of clinical excellence. There's 5 categories that services in the state of Minnesota are they evaluate on, and that's in our reporting, our run sheets and stuff like that. You have to meet 80% in various categories, and our service has been doing that, so they sent us a nice little certificate.
Good.
I pass it along to our service, so.
Yep, absolutely. Congratulations on that. And once again, keep up the good work. And we appreciate all your participants as being your ambulance drivers and all that. That takes a lot of time.
Thank you.
Marv.
I've got a quick question for Steve. In that rate structure, is there some depreciation figured in there?
So when we're looking at, what rates we've got, we have to figure in, cost of the capital, the ambulance replacements, the training costs, the EMT cost. We now have a director, that cost into it, the nursing cost. The difficult part about it is we don't know how many runs a year we're going to have. And so what we do is we kind of take a baseline look at the last few years and probably try to average it out and kind of look at the high, low, and pick a medium number and then apply those costs to that to come up with a pretty good rate of where we're at. Now, we do have a bit of a balance in the ambulance fund, but as you see, ambulances cost us $200,000 a piece, and we want to make sure that we're able to be self-sustaining. There are a number of services that are struggling just with their costs. And so we're fortunate to have a very good crew, and moving that forward, the ambulance has been under very good hands the last 20, plus years to help build that balance. And then the council's been very good about having the rates be competitive with our local services, so that we're not high, we're not low, but we're meeting those needs. And so that's kind of how we approach it, is kind of more that holistic view.
Just a question, Steve, say these apartments got built and opened up next week, they all filled up, and we got close to 5,000, how is that gonna come in, has that been figured in or not?
We haven't figured in any extra runs for those kind of things. We don't project out number of runs. We kind of look back on what history has been. But if we have those apartments full, we do have a fourth rig. A couple of years ago, you may remember, we decided to keep one of those. And in 2017, when the fire hall ambulance facility was constructed, a fourth ambulance bay was put on for that future growth in anticipation of meeting these population goals. So I think we're at where we need to be with rigs and coverage. So
I guess the reason I ask is because Kristen mentioned Worthington, somewhat larger, and the rates are different.
Worthington also has a little bit of a different structure. They have a lot of full-time employees where we have paid-on-call staff, and so there's quite a difference in the call structure, organizational structure of how that service is run. And it's not through the city of Worthington; it's through the Windom area, or through Worthington Area Health, right? Sanford runs it, so there's quite a bit of difference in the cost structure.
Okay, we took care of that one, right? Okay. Next is your annual report, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. 2022 annual report, that's our statistical report that comes out from all the departments. That was sent out in separate link, as it's about 102 or 106 pages. In there's a narrative from the department, kind of highlights for the year. The police department continues to lead our charge on the quality and length of the narrative. They do a lot and have a lot of services and provide a lot to the community, so there's quite a bit to talk about there. That report is, as I mentioned, it was sent out separate link. It is on the city's website. Certainly encourage people to take a look at it, because it's interesting to see how many books were lent out of the library, how many gallons of water were put into the distribution system, those types of things. So it's very interesting. It also does include the EDA's annual report that was given to the EDA board at its last meeting, which they approved. That's included in this annual report, so we would ask for council approval of that 2022 annual report so that we can meet our statutory requirement to having that approved by the council for the Economic Development Board.
Okay, the 2022 annual report, as stated by Steve, was included in the packet as a separate link, and also is on the website. So that information is available to the public. Please take a look at that. And as Steve stated, we do need to accept this and approve the 2022 annual report. A motion would be in order to do so.
I'll motion to accept the meeting, or the annual report.
I'd second.
That motion was made by Scott and seconded by Marv. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Anybody have any new business tonight? Any old business? Nothing? Steve, you were thinking about it.
Comments.
Okay. No. Okay, speaking of not skipping, let's go to council comments. And member Jenny Quaid is going to go first, so I don't forget her again, as I did 2 meetings ago. I apologize for that, Jenny, on record here. So Make sure you put that in the minutes, Steve, that I sincerely apologize to Jenny for missing that. Jenny, you're on the scope.
Well, last meeting then when you were not in attendance, I made up for not being able to speak the week before, so I said so much last time that I have nothing this week.
You never know when to ask Jenny if she has any comments. Scott?
No, I have none.
Marv?
I would thank everybody involved in putting that annual report together. The story, the data is basically the same, but the story is getting better and better every year. So thank you everyone that was involved in that.
Well said, Marv. Jim?
I really don't have anything other than watch out for the snow, because it's coming. Ask John, he knows.
Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. Just the city offices will be closed tomorrow due to the weather that was being spoke about earlier. The county offices are also closed tomorrow. We will have emergency personnel and on-call personnel, but all city buildings and city offices will be closed tomorrow. Thursday, we will see how the snow goes. We may or may not have an early or a late start, but we'll play that by ear until we get closer to Thursday morning. So, but we will be closed tomorrow, Wednesday, the 22nd.
Steve, could you elaborate? Is that the other buildings that would be closed? Are we talking
We're talking community center, arena, library, city hall office, liquor store? All of our public buildings are closed.
Okay, you heard it here first from Steve Nasby. So thank you. And the only thing I would have is I'm going to thank you before you even do it, John, but thanks for staying up for 2 days and taking care of the snow in town. Be safe out there in the roads, and to our residents, please get your vehicles off the road. We would truly appreciate that, and they'll do a good job cleaning up as they have been, so we appreciate that. So with that, hearing nothing else, we're going to adjourn by unanimous consent.